So, like, back in, oh god, I want to say it must have been like 2006 or 2007. Um, I flipped a Toyota Echo, and it was just totaled. Like, it was just done for. There was no real fixing it. Aside from like possibly taking it to like a frame like restoration like shop or whatever you want to call it. I don't remember what they're called exactly. Anyways, car was toast, and so I have a Heineken keg that you guys might have seen in like one of my other videos. That I had actually cut out the top with a Dremel tool, and back then I was using it just kind of like a piggy bank, and I would just throw change in there. And I used to work at Pizza Hut, and I used to end up with a lot of change in my pocket, and I didn't really feel like cashing it in at the end of the night, so I would just like walk home with like this huge wad of like change. And I would just throw it in the keg, and that was that. Like, it was like whatever. So after I flipped the car, I was like, oh man, what am I gonna do? I need to get another car. And I kind of had a bit of a drinking problem back then, because I mean I was pulling in about $700 a week in cash, so I should have had money, but I had spent it all on liquor. And I was like, oh god, what am I gonna do? And my girlfriend at the time, Liz, she was like, hey, she's like, you have change in your piggy bank, don't you, in your little Heineken keg? And I was like, oh, there's no way I have like, nearly enough cash to buy a car in that thing. And she's like, well, why don't you, just count it, and you might be surprised by how much you have. So, I went with my friend Charles to TD Bank North to cash in the change. And the thing is, the keg was only like halfway full, but it was literally just quarters, just and dimes and what have you. And turns out I actually had about $800 in that keg, and I was like, well, time to find a $800 car. Now, mind you, this was back in like the day way before like Craigslist or Facebook Market or any of that existed. So I was actually looking through the what do you call it, like editorials or whatever, or like the sales section in a newspaper, and I found an 86 300ZX non-turbo, and I was like, oh, this car sounds awesome. I wasn't really I wasn't really into cars back then. But I had always seen those cars, and I thought they looked awesome, especially because I had pop-up headlights and whatever, and it's a Z. They just look cool, and I had never really owned a sports car before then either, so I was like, oh, this is a good starting point. So I called the guy. He wanted $1,200 for it, and my dad and my girlfriend, we went to go look at the car, and it was really nice. He let me test drive it and whatnot, and it had a few things here and there, but it was nothing like just horrible. Like I needed a new like steering rack, universal joint, and like something else. I was like maybe like a small rust hole somewhere. It was easy fix. So I talked the guy down at $800, in cash, and I drove off with it that night. So over the next like month or two, I was like really enjoying my car, and I was like, you know what? Aside from the universal U joint and fixing that little rust hole or whatever, this car could probably use like a really good tune-up. So I got tires, changed the air filter, changed the spark plugs, did an oil change, transmission fluid, ended up changing the clutch, the slave cylinder. God, just everything that goes into a tune-up, like the radiator fluid and whatnot, freshen that up, and the power steering and all that. So it was I was driving like really, really well after that. Like I also got an alignment for it, and it was just good times. And so when I was working at Pizza Hut, like I mentioned, I had a delivery like somewhere, you know, around noontime, and I had to drive all the way to exit, what was it, like exit 5, I believe. And you know, the Pizza Hut that I worked at was actually like on between exit 7 and 8, up in Nashua, and I don't, like, that Pizza Hut doesn't exist there anymore. I don't even know what it is anymore, but um, anyway, so I took off. I took exit 8, and the thing is, between exit 8 and exit 5, on that little stretch of highway on Route 3, it's like a 5-lane highway, which is insane because it's not really like an interstate or anything. It's just like a, you know, just a regular highway. And it was just a beautiful sunny day. There was no cars on the road, like, whatsoever. Not, and like, it's a very straight shot, so I didn't see any cops or anything, and I was just like, oh man, it's time. So I floor it, and I just like start seeing that speedometer just go all the way from like, you know, 20 all the way up to like 145. I think that's like as fast as I could get it to go that day. And like, I think I went by one car and I just like flew down. It was insane. I was like, oh man, what a rush. This feels awesome, you know? So, you know, I finally get off on exit 5 after, like, you know, it's hauling ass down there, and I get to, you know, the address where I was delivering the pizza at, and, you know, the customer was like, wow, you got here really fast, and I got like a $20 tip, so that was awesome, you know? And I was like, well, I gotta go back, so I took my time getting back, and, you know, because I didn't want my boss being like, dude, how fast were you going? Well, it turns out he already knew, because when I got there, you know, after like, you know, 20 minutes, which is what's supposed to be the regular delivery time, he's like, hey Nelson, how fast were you going? And I was like, 55? And he's like, no Nelson, how fast were you going? I was like, okay, fine, I was doing 60. You know, he's like, no you weren't. I was like, what? I was like, what do you mean, man? I was like, why are you making these false accusations? And he's like, listen Nelson, he's like, somebody called and they complained about you and how fast you were going. I was like, okay. I was like, what? I mean, did they describe the car? He's like, no, but you have the Pizza Hut sign on top of your car, Nelson. And all she said was that it was a blue car. She couldn't tell what kind of make or model it was, but you made her look like she was just parked in the middle of the highway. He's like, how fast were you going, man? I was like, oh, I don't know, 145, I think. And he's like, Jesus, Nelson. He's like, luckily she couldn't read your license plate or anything. So he's like, I was like, well, did you offer her a delivery? Because obviously, you know, we can get there. He's like, Nelson, shut up. He's like, don't do it again. And so yeah, that's that story for that day. And the thing is, no one really knows what became of that Blue Z. Some people say that, you know, he sold the car. Others say that he got like an RB30 engine swap for it. Some even say that he got an LS swap. Who knows? But some say that car is still speeding down the highway to this day. Still making those deliveries with that Pizza Hut sign up top. And you know what? That's least likely to be the one that's actually happening. But it's the one I choose to believe. It's the one that I hold dear in my heart.